breaking right now. Meghan Markle is selling her family, selling her marriage to Prince Harry, selling her children, and let's be honest, selling her soul to the tabloid media she claimed to hate so much to promote the launch of With Love Meghan tomorrow. Here it comes, folks. Look at this. The cover of People magazine. Harry, the kids, and my life now. The Meghan interview. An intimate conversation with the Duchess of Sussex and People, which we know, by the way, this is all copy approved. This is all the official narrative, but they say with a new show and lifestyle brand, Meghan is returning to her roots inside her private world in Montecito, why she's back in a honeymoon period with Harry, and what life is really like with Archie and Lilibet, from pancake mornings to cozy takeout nights. Brittany, editor of the Royal News Network, joins me now. What we're going to do, Brittany, and this will be very similar to our coverage of With Love Meghan too, we're going to take you through this interview now, but we're going to translate and reveal what Meghan is really talking about here. But of course, this comes on the back of some quite gross action over the weekend, Brittany, where Meghan was also pimping out Lilibet with Serena Williams. So we know that using the children is going to be a central part of Meghan attempting to sell the show. But let me just say, Brittany, have your sick bucket ready, because this isn't going to be easy. I promise you. This is what we call propaganda 101. So let's go.
Oh, yes.
The interview starts, Brittany. Meghan Markle is curled up in bed with her sleeping 5-year-old son, Prince Archie, on a recent winter evening in Montecito, California. With her phone in hand, she catches up on emails, finalizing details for the launch of her renamed lifestyle brand as ever, and her new Netflix series, With Love Meghan. Her husband, Prince Harry, is still in Vancouver wrapping up the Invictus Games. Oh, so that's what she did. Get sent home, immediately invites People magazine around. And she says that Archie and Lilibet had got sick and they were seen by the doctor and sipping bone broth.
All right, folks, grab your popcorn because Meghan Markle's latest PR stunt is so over the top, it's laughable. She just gave a bombshell interview to People magazine. And surprise, surprise, it's all about how perfect her life is. So let's break this down. Meghan personally invites People magazine to talk about her happy marriage, her wonderful kids, and her return to her roots. Really? Because last time we checked, this is the same woman who claimed royal life nearly destroyed her.
Now she's savoring the stillness at home with Archie as he stirs awake, sleepingly telling her, "Mama, don't work too hard." Recalling the moment to People a few days later, the Duchess of Sussex says, "It was the sweetest thing." Okay, Brittany, I call bullshit on that. That conversation never happened. Your thoughts?
No, it's too convenient. And we know she hardly works, to be quite honest. We see this just reflected in how she's launched her brand. It's been an epic train wreck. And you know how that wouldn't have happened? If you were working hard at it and actually trying to make it work, then you wouldn't have such disruptions as she does. But I don't believe any of that. I think most of her words are as fake and as photoshopped as that picture on the cover page of the magazine. And so, yeah, don't believe a word of it.
Okay, then it comes to the business. Brittany, then it comes to the failed business, you know, American Riviera Orchard coming into With Love Meghan, and the fact that she's the chief executive. And this is how Meghan tells it to People magazine, tells the story to People magazine. There are tons of twists and turns, even with the name. I was figuring it out in real time. Okay, well, she is being honest there. No shit, Sherlock, we got that.
Yeah, she was.
And although she has faced intense public scrutiny at every step, Meghan says the experience has been defined by growth. Okay, so here's the mumbo-jumbo bit. I appreciate everyone who gave me the grace to make mistakes and figure it out, and also to be forgiving with myself through that. It's a learning curve, she says. Now, then we get to the fact that the Sussex name, right, the Sussex name holds a deeper significance to her than it did before motherhood. Because, of course, reading between the lines, People magazine is effectively saying, why, Meghan, are you trying to keep your ties to the royal family? And she has to come up with a way to justify that. So she says, it's our shared name as a family. And I guess I hadn't recognized how meaningful that would be to me until we had children. I love that it is something that Archie, Lily, H, and I all have together. It means a lot to me. The Sussex name, she adds, is part of our love story. So odd, isn't it, Brittany, given she seems to think the royal family with a bunch of racist, horrible people, but now the Sussex name is part of her family.
Well, I mean, if all of us should have these amazing epic love stories, shouldn't we all get royal titles if that's all it's necessary for a royal title is to have this sort of epic love story? I mean, it's so incredibly ridiculous and pretentious. And I would challenge Meghan if she can tell me 5 things about Sussex. I would be shocked. I would be shocked. She doesn't care about Sussex. She doesn't care about the UK. She cares about those titles and how she can monetize them. That is all she has ever cared about is the money. That's all she cares about. You know, to be quite frank, I think screw Harry, screw the kids. If she can make 10, 20, $30 million, let alone 100 or 200, that is what is truly driving her. It's not really this family love story and everything. No, no, no. It's about the money because she couldn't do it under the name Meghan Markle. She needed to marry a guy with a title, with the money, with an influence in order for her to be successful. That she married her success and that's it. It's not about this family name and being together and yada, yada, yada. It's just about she just wants that title. She wants the money. And she's trying to sugarcoat it, but yeah, she'll keep that title as long as humanly possible if she can turn a buck with it.
Brittany from Royal News Network calls it out perfectly. This isn't about sharing her truth. This is about selling a narrative before her Netflix show flops. And honestly, nobody's buying it. Now here's where things get really ridiculous. Meghan claims Archie, at just 5 years old, gave her a little pep talk about working too hard. She says he snuggled up next to her in bed and told her, "Mama, don't work too hard." I mean, come on. Brittany says it best. That conversation never happened. This is so obviously scripted it might as well be written by Hallmark. It's too perfect, too PR friendly, and honestly, just laughable.
Oh, big time, big time. And then, of course, that's the question. Why are you doing this, right? And so here's her justification, Brittany. When the children get to a certain age, when you're not just playing in the sandbox with them, but almost playing in your own sandbox again, it's super joyful. Sorry, Brittany, I've got to interrupt there. Meghan was never playing in the sandbox, okay? The nanny
that makes no
was
sense.
playing in the sandbox. And she
That
says,
makes no sense.
Yeah, she says, as a woman, a mom and a wife, to be able to find yourself again in a way that was almost always present, but that you maybe couldn't put as much attention on as you now can when your kids are a little bit older, is a wonderful feeling. So what she's effectively saying, Brittany, is what we have known for some time, what I've reported for some time. She hasn't taken to motherhood particularly well. This isn't something that she particularly loves.
No, it's just like she's basically saying, I want it to be about me again. She's like, they're old enough to sort of take care of themselves. So now I get to focus on me because I'm the most important. That's what she's saying there. 150%. Dan, I have to agree with you. I always thought she wasn't probably very motherly. I don't think she was particularly anxious to be a mom. I just think that's something maybe she could achieve, but it wasn't a driving force for her. And she now is like, I get to focus on me again. I get to shove my kids and my husband to the side and it gets to be about me. Like you can almost feel the fervor over the attention she's now going to get because now she is relaunching this all and doing it in an epic train wreck and hoping that it's successful. But yeah, nobody's really buying this very much. I get to be on my own in like this lovely way because I know many moms do feel that at some point. They're like, yeah, I get to, not focus solely on the kids. But Meghan definitely is. It's all about me. I get to leave the kids at home or I get to leave the kids with, the nannies or whoever, and I get to focus on me. And that's what's most important to her. It's obvious.
We're also getting some news about With Love, Meghan here, because she's admitting that Harry was not wanting to be part of this show apparently he only turns up for a brief moment in the final episode, which is really misleading, isn't it, Brittany? Because the trailer obviously made you think that he was a part of this. But they've got a crew member to tell People magazine, whenever Harry visited the set, he was always super polite and friendly, but it was clear he wanted this to be Meghan's moment to shine. Translation: Harry no longer wants to be dragged down by his wife's utter crap on Netflix. He's out, isn't he? And they drag him in very briefly just so he can be used in the trailer, but actually he's not really part of this show, Brittany.
Exactly. And when you look at Harry, he just, I think, is totally sick of this like PR, this production side of everything. I think he sort of hates it. I think he realized pretty quickly, I don't really like this. And he had his thing with Polo, he had Heart of Invictus, and none of them did very well. And I think he's probably a bit burned by the process. And he's like, I'm done. And Meghan still wants to pursue all this. And I think he has figured out, and I could be just reading into this, that this world she loves is very shallow. And it's not as fulfilling maybe as, she initially portrayed it to be to him. And so he's like, yeah, I can be her thing. I don't care. And so he's like, I don't want to be part of it. I'll pick her up at the end of the day, but I don't care. But they've shown him both in the trailer and then in the little behind the scenes thing they did recently, they showed him again picking her up because they know, and we all know, that the only reason Harry and Meghan are sellable is because of him and his family. That's it. Without him, she's just basically a D-list actress who can't even fake a decent conversation with a chef. So it's just so obvious where the show is going, and there's just not much there. And she's going to keep trying in Hollywood, and Harry's just totally and completely checked out of, you could say, both their working dynamic and maybe eventually their more personal relationship dynamic as well.
And let's be real, Meghan working too hard? Since when? If she were actually putting in the work, her lifestyle brand wouldn't be such a disaster. But we'll get to that in a second. And this is where things get really disturbing, because Meghan isn't just selling the perfect family image. She's also dragging her kids into the spotlight again. Just days before this interview, Meghan was parading Lilibet around in a carefully staged moment with Serena Williams. Now, she's bringing Archie into the mix with these 2 perfect bedtime stories. Let's not forget, this isn't the first time. She did the same thing with Archie's voice cameo on her Spotify podcast, and now she's doing it again to promote her failing brand.
Oh, totally. And they do ask her about the TIG, right? And she's making out the TIG was a much bigger success than it actually was. But she is saying that really she only had to give up the TIG because of the royal family, saying, well, I love the TIG, but I certainly love my husband more. So that was a choice I made at the time, and I wouldn't change that for a second. But again, Brittany, that is just a lie. No one, let me repeat, no one in the royal family ever asked Meghan Markle to give up the TIG. They also, by the way, didn't even ask her to give up acting. And she actually is asked in this interview, did she have to push her comfort zone to be back in front of the camera when it had been such a long time since Suits? And she tells People magazine, I was never really in front of the camera like this. It's a time capsule for me. I still have the pencil skirt from the first episode. That's the one thing I kept. And she is asked about the new Suits LA, where she has been speculated to potentially make some type of acting comeback. And she says, I love that it gets a new breath of fresh air. People says her new show, though, with Love Meghan, isn't a traditional stand and stir format, which is an industry term Meghan learned during filming to describe most cooking shows. So this isn't a normal cooking show, Brittany, okay? According to Meghan, this is something quite special. She says, and this is where you really need your sick bucket, okay? It feels though we're just spending time together, which is what it ended up being. I'd make a recipe and say, everyone try this. And there are certain dishes where you just watch everyone flock in. I'd say, we've run out of spoons. It ended up feeling so communal. And that's the spirit of the show. And then they pull the director in, Michael Steed, to defend Meghan. Of course they do. And they say everyone has this one version of her, but she's just someone who is hustling and working and doing. I genuinely wanted to create an environment where she could relax, and I know the pressures of what she deals with on a daily basis. I was happy that we created scenes where she could tap into that part of her life. Now, to me, Brittany, that's very odd. That's not the director saying this is a nice woman, okay? This is the director saying she is always hustling and working and doing. What's your take on that? Odd language,
That's an
isn't it?
interesting. I mean, we all know that she loves to hustle. But the thing is, when it comes to Meghan and her hustling, it just doesn't generally result in good dividends because she either doesn't do her research or she makes mistakes along the way or just so many different things. And so she's hustling trying to get ahead, but her final product is never something that is very good. And when it comes to this show, yeah, people are flocking to taste this stuff because they're being paid to do that. It's not that they're just doing that because it's just so great. That's part of the whole process of paying somebody to be there and doing this show. And so I just don't really foresee this being very very good. And yeah, she's trying to hustle, but to what end? Because at this point she shouldn't be hustling. She should just be working and creating good products. But if she's always doing the hustle, but she can rarely actually fulfill the end goal, whatever that happens to be. And we'll see how well this show goes, but I think it's a tired premise. I think it's dropping at a terrible time because you got, obviously the tensions with Ukraine and the United States and different things going on in the world. And she will totally be knocked out of the news cycle by Donald Trump later that day because he's giving an address to the nation, kind of like a State of the Union. So she's going to get crushed by that in any sort of discussion online, you could say. But yeah, I just don't see, like, when it comes to these employees, I'm sure they were trying to make things easy for her because when they're easy for her, they're easier for everyone because she doesn't like it when things don't go her way. So you can say even with what he's describing that they were trying to make things as good as they could for her because otherwise they're walking on eggshells and nothing goes well. So it'll be interesting to see what this whole show actually looks like. But again, the sneak peek we saw last week leaves a lot to be desired.
At this point, it's clear. Meghan only keeps the kids out of the public eye when it's convenient for her. But when she needs a PR boost, suddenly they're front and center. And speaking of disasters, let's talk about Meghan's failing business. Because the timing of this interview, very suspicious. It just so happens to come right when her lifestyle brand is already falling apart. She renamed American Riviera Orchard to As Ever. But here's the problem. Nobody even knows what it is. Is it a homeware brand? A food business? A luxury label? Even Meghan doesn't seem to know. One analyst said Meghan is throwing out random ideas with no real business plan. And guess what? That's exactly what happened with her Spotify deal. And we all know how that ended. If the public doesn't care, if Hollywood isn't buying it, and if even her Netflix deal is hanging by a thread, this business is doomed before it even starts.
Indeed, and she's revealed a bit more about her future plans. Brittany, the bad news is the podcast is launching in the spring, so it is coming back. She talks about her return to Instagram, saying, when I was last on social media, boomerang was the thing. Instagram stories didn't even exist, so it's been a minute. But she says, Brittany, she doesn't see herself as an influencer. And you're not going to believe the way Meghan now chooses to define herself. I see myself as an entrepreneur and a female founder. And if the brand ends up influential, then that's great. Then she gets political, Brittany. And I found this particularly interesting because, in America, there's been a big movement back to the so-called trad wife or traditional wife and that sort of movement. And it's very easy to say that Meghan's show fits into that. However, of course, that is something that's connected with MAGA and the Republican movement. So she's desperate to distance herself. And she says, I like being able to do a hybrid, claiming that Chinese delivery food is a favorite. But even when I get takeout, sorry, I struggle not to laugh. Even when I get takeout, I will try to plate it beautifully. She encourages others to strive for balance, not perfection, despite her show's beautiful imagery. The series is about doing what you can do and doing it with love. Now, just imagine how annoying this woman is to live with, Brittany. Come on. Man. Harry's just got his Chinese in, and she says, no,
we need to plate it. Let's get out the China for the takeout.
It's a weird way to live, isn't it?
Oh, it is. And it's just so, I think, it goes back to her obsessive need, I think, for control and presentation and everything that she just wants, even takeout to look perfect. And it's like kind of the fun and the joy of life is in the imperfections. And even though she claims the show is not about being perfect, like you see it in every visual of the show, like the flowers perfectly in the ice cubes and the perfect cake and how she's cutting it perfectly and everything. It totally screams a different message. And it's not something I think that'll resonate with a lot of Americans because I just don't think this show in particular is going to be something that people are going to go, yeah, this is going to be groundbreaking stuff. I'll bookmark it so I can go back the next time I'm throwing a party. Because it even sounded like, and I didn't watch the full interview, so I can't say for certain, but it seemed to like even Mindy Kaling, even after Meghan showed her how wonderful children's birthday parties could be, I think Mindy still went the cheaper route for her child, even after Meghan's presentation. So if Meghan can convince her closest friends to follow along, and again, I didn't watch the full interview, so I can't say for certain if that's what happened or not. But if she didn't get her, a friend to follow along who was on the show, then how can she get the rest of the American public? And especially in a time when egg prices are still high, we're still battling inflation. There's a lot going on in the world, so many different things. And she just seems incredibly out of touch. And she doesn't, I think, realize how out of touch she is. I think Gwyneth Paltrow is aware of the absurdity of her life and sort of, kind of relishes in that with Goop. But I think Meghan genuinely thinks that she can impact the normal person and saying things that normal people can emulate while also being an incredibly wealthy woman and not realizing how ridiculous she sounds to the average person.
So here's the real question. Is this Meghan's most desperate PR move yet? Because let's be honest, this interview wasn't about sharing her truth. This was a carefully orchestrated PR stunt. If her marriage is so perfect, why does she need to keep telling us that? If her kids are so protected from the media, why does she keep using them for headlines? The more she talks, the more obvious it becomes. And the public? They're not fooled. People are laughing at this interview, roasting the fake stories and calling out the contradictions. At this point, who does she think she's fooling? Alright folks, that's it for today's reaction. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit that like button, subscribe for more. Do you believe Meghan's perfect family life? Or is this just another PR stunt? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.